This week, Snuffed Out have a good week with their dreadnoughts. 'Tis the Saturday of doom for Kikimoras. Tristans throw themselves at an athanor. Test Alliance, please ignore, are on the move. Fraternity makes a worthwhile purchase. And war comes to Omist, which totally bugs up my saying of nothing ever happens in Omist. Hello pod people, I'm Frost and this is your weekly EVE Online update. Welcome back. So as always, we start off by announcing the winners of the Scope Syndication skins from last week's episode, which was the 13th of December. And my two winners are Neth Yafin and Amdar Sharisa. So congratulations to my two winners. I'm also going to give away a bonus skin for a dad joke. This one was great. So BQ Shu, you need to get in touch with me through my Discord so you can get a Stratio skin. Here is the dad joke. What do you call a sleepwalking nun? A roaming Catholic. There we go. So I like that very much. So be sure to get in touch with me, BQShu, and I will sort out a bonus skin for you. Right, so let's crack on with the news. You know how it goes by now. I jump up into my box and let me see if my pen is at the ready. We're going to go from Pure Blind and we're going to work our way around the donut. Although most of the news this week is kind of in this area down here surrounded in blue in the south. Okay, so with Pure Blind. So in Pure Blind, as you know, that's where Brave currently live, up here. And we're going to start with Snuffed Out. Snuffed Out have had a good week this week. This is the first battle report that comes up. And as you can see, Snuffed Out were able to kill a bunch of Brave capitals and a Rorqual. So essentially a Rorqual got caught by Snuffed Out. Then some Tempests came in to try and save the Rorqual. And as you can see as well that Brave was seriously underhanded with this against 60 Snuffed Out. And so therefore that's why they kind of brought in the caps. Now, a dread bomb then ensued from Snuffed Out and they were very successful. In fact, their only loss was one Dicta. So they did very, very well there. And it just goes to confirm that they are the masters of dread bombing. So that was not the only kill that they had. Because next door, or a couple of systems away in Vale the Silent, in the system of KRUN-N or Krun, Snuffed Out were able to bait out with a Praxis not only a Titan, but a faction supercarrier in the form of a Vendetta. The Titan belonging to Lords of Wales Alliance, the Vendetta belonging to Fraternity, both of which are part of Winter Coalition. Now, I actually have a video here from Snuffed Out. The first minute is mostly Tau getting quite stressed over getting the bubbles up and getting these this Erebus and this Vendetta bubbled. Now you're seeing basically all the dreads land and the dread bombs start. Now, the thing you need to do is you need to watch this video. It is linked in the description below for the soundtrack. The soundtrack is a pirate sea shanty dubstep track. And for me, personally, Snuffed Out, please, can you make this your Alliance anthem, please? Because this is the perfect track for me, from my point of view, for Snuffed Out. As soon as I heard this, I was kind of like, lol. So please do go and check this out. Link is in the description below for this amazing soundtrack on this Snuffed Out video. So there you go. So that's pretty much it, I think, for Snuffed Out. Snuffed Out appear a little bit later on in the show as well. But this was obviously two very successful dread bombs for them. And then we are going to go to Tribute very quickly. Now, I don't normally mention Wailing Keels, but I'm going to mention these because this was Saturday the 18th of December. And this was the day of doom for Kikimoras. As you will see, a lot of Kikimoras died on this day. And it started off in the afternoon with the initiative in Kikimoras. It looks like they were trying to do some wailing. And as you can see, a whole bunch of Kikimoras died, as you can see from that very red kill board on the right-hand side there, to Winter Coalition Home Defense Fleet. So that's just the beginning of the Kikimora. So I just wanted to bring that up. So we got, I don't know how many was there. Can we actually see it? Can I go to, is it in summary that I see these ships? Let's see if it actually flips over. Summary, here we go. So we had 55 Kikimoras die already so far this day. But as you're going to see, it's going to get into the hundreds. Now, I just want to also just very quickly touch on Geminate. So with Geminate, I just want to give you up to speed here, because I've talked about this before. There's kind of a small group that are down in this constellation down here. The group being Arcos Core, Psychotic Tendencies, which is better known as Tissue, and also there is another group, Iron Inquisition. So Arcos Core are here in blue, and then in the yellow you have kind of Tissue and Iron Inquisition living in this area. Now these groups have decided to kind of not aggress each other's sovs, and in fact Tissue have been causing quite a few problems with no visual who live in this area here. Excuse me, primarily, and also I believe they've also been going into Vale of the Silent and causing hassles for Fraternity or Winter Coalitions generally with Type C crystals. So basically, if you're not aware, with the mining changes that happened recently, you now have these destructive crystals, and essentially psychotic tendencies have been going to the moons that belong to Fraternity members and or renters and destroying their rocks essentially with Type C crystals. So therefore the Fraternity have responded with the attack on tissue structures or psychotic tendencies. So that's kind of what's going on in Geminate right now. Now I want to go over to Essence. What I want to show you is something that happened in Obaliu, and let me see if I can find the right battle report. No, that was the one I was looking at before. Here we go. What this involved was basically pirates, Lords of War, or Plow is their ticker name. They got a little bit upset that this athanor was originally a free port, and they got somehow, for whatever reason, were no longer given access to this free port athanor. So they decided to shoot it, and the way they went about it was not very typical. It actually has happened in the past, and I will come on back to that in a minute. But what I want to bring up here was that they attacked it with Tristans. So obviously the an athanor doesn't have a point defense system, so you can use drones on it. But what they did, and this is where I kind of wanted to really highlight this, was they put a POS up in the system of Obaliu, and they put a Hell in it, a supercarrier. And then put a recloner in there. A recloner is something you could fit on a supercarrier that means that when you die, you basically end up back in the supercarrier, and then filled it up with loads of Tristans. And so they just threw hundreds and hundreds of these ships. I mean, you can see as well that here they only had 49 pilots versus 86 on this side, although Snuffed Out arrived later. But the main thing is they were pretty much underhanded, but they managed to get this athanor pretty much all the way down to about 25% structure. They'd originally refed it in shields and then into armor. So this was the final timer. And they were able to destroy it finally by dropping a Moros in, just to try and get that kind of final kind of DPS to be able to destroy the athanor. Now obviously as soon as you have something like a Moros show up on grid on its own, unprotected, then of course you're going to get a Blops from Snuffed Out, who are going to bring a whole bunch of Blops battleships to deal with that. So the main thing here though was to talk about the use of the recloner. Now we haven't seen that very much. The only time I've really seen it before was during the Pappy Imperium War, when I think the Imperium were using it for dicta pilots. So basically sabers, as you know, or flycatchers die very, very easily. This way it allowed them to reclone in system into a supercarrier, grabs a new dicta, and then goes straight back out again. Especially in tie-dye, that kind of makes a huge difference, not having to jump through a gate. Also, I mentioned that this has happened before. If I remember correctly, this happened all the way up in Peregrine Falls when Guardians of the Galaxy tried to anchor a keep star in MTO2-2. And the response from Drone Control Unit was to bring out a whole bunch of Vexers and to just keep throwing Vexers at it until it eventually died. So we see a little bit of history repeating itself there. But yeah, so I just wanted to bring that up. So also the other thing as well, these Tristans, first of all, they tried to deal with them with Skybreakers, then Jackdaws arrived, then Ravens arrived, but still the numbers of Tristans just kept coming until they were able to overwhelm the Athanor with the help of the Moros. All right, so we're going to talk about the south now because there's obviously a lot happening there. We're actually going to include Outer Passage in the south, which is where Test Alliance Kikimora are based. So before we do that, let's do the giveaway. So once again, here it is, the Stratios Scope Syndication Skin. I have 2 to give away. As you know, if you're familiar with the show, the way that you enter into the draw is you have to put a comment in the YouTube comments down below with the keyword. You have to make it into a sentence. You can't just put the keyword on its own, otherwise don't qualify. I think with the fact that we had these Tristans kind of just throwing themselves at an athanor, the keyword this week should be frigate. So make up a sentence with the word frigate. The cutoff will be 1800 UTC on Friday the 24th of December, and then I will then post either that Friday night or on Christmas Day. I will reply to your comments, so do check your YouTube comments either on Christmas Day, that's Saturday the 25th, or on Boxing Day, which is Sunday the 26th. To see if you've won. Contact me on my Discord and I'll sort out your skin for you. So there you go, good luck with the prize draw. All right, so now back with the news. So let me go back to my map and we're going to talk about Test Alliance Please Ignore. So Test Alliance Please Ignore, or TEST for short, are up here in Outer Passage. If you remember, after the Papi Imperium War, they were kind of given a couch by PanFam and kind of set themselves up in Outer Passage. If you go into Outer Passage, you can see it's all TEST. Obviously, we talked about last week a number of PvP corporations having left TEST, and so TEST have now deployed. And I said last week that, I can't remember if I mentioned last week, I thought they were potentially going down to Curse because of the fact that the Imperium have also deployed. And in fact, in Curse, I know two SIG squads, special interest groups from Imperium have deployed there. In fact, let's just go over to Curse very quickly. They've deployed to GTAC G78S. I can happily say that, it's not a secret. Fire Coalition are well aware that they are there. I think it is Whelp Squad and Space Violence are the two SIG groups I know for certain that have deployed there. They've brought a whole bunch of stuff with them, thousands of subcaps. And the whole idea is to kind of just go into Scalding Pass, which is right next door, which is Fire Coalition territory, and generate some content. So going back to Test Alliance, I thought they were going down to Curse. That wasn't the case. They're actually going further south, and I will come back to where they're going a little bit later on in the show. Right, so we've talked about Curse. So now what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about this deployment. So as I mentioned, Test Alliance were on the move, and one of the areas where they went through was Cache and Innsmother. Now, the first battle report that I have, if I can pick the right, and I'm really not on it with picking the right battle report. Here we go. So this one was a bunch more Kikimoras got shot. This is just totally random. I'm not quite sure if it was associated with the test move or not, but NC Dot with some Pandemic Legion pilots managed to destroy another sort of 15, 16 Kikimoras. Also, by the way, just so you know, the Legion of Death and the Brave Collective on here are completely random. It was a Legion of Death pilot in a Gila Gila, destroyed a Brave pod, so that wasn't really related to this in any way. But further on, as tests were moving down, basically these Kikimoras from an Imperium tried to create hassle on the move-ups. Now, I have a battle report that basically covers all of the systems that I know of where this kind of happened. So you can see it was a pretty busy afternoon. It all started about 1930 to 2100 Eve time. Lots of systems covered, and you can see that the move up included two rags that were providing the Titan bridging to the subcaps. There were some capitals here as well, but there was only a few, and really this shows that the deployment from Test Alliance Please Ignore isn't a full capital deployment. It's purely subcap, and I had looked at a couple of the kill mails. I saw a couple of Munins kind of stuck away in these capitals. So most likely they were being used as suitcases and nothing more. But if we look on the left-hand side, and obviously in the middle here we have Fire Coalition. Fire Coalition came to the assistance of Test Alliance Please Ignore when these Kikimoras came to attack the move up and create some hassle on the move up. And as you can see on the left-hand side, a lot of Kikimoras were destroyed. So there you go. So I can keep scrolling down. So yeah, a fair few. Normally we don't see that many get destroyed. They're normally much more successful in whaling fleets. Also, there was plenty of bombers as well. I think it's Whelp Squad from the Imperium, I may be wrong here, who are more, do kind of more bombing stuff. It may be space violence, I'm not sure. I'm sure someone will correct me in the comments or contact me on the Discord. But either way, lots of Kikimoras died on that day. Obviously, they was fairly successful. They did lose like 34 billion, but they did do like 25 billion of damage, including killing a few capitals here. I can see a couple of Revs and a Phoenix getting destroyed, and some Scorpions as well, which are normally pretty expensive. So there you go. So that was kind of what happened during the move up. Now, where did they go? Well, they have gone from Outer Passage all the way down into Feythabolis. Once again, I'm happy to announce this because I know that Red Menace Coalition, Fire Coalition, and PIBC are all aware that Test have now set up shop in LX5W-U in a XIX Fortizar. And so some stuff was happening there. And one of the things that actually happened, which is worth mentioning, is that it appears, by the way, just before I go on to that Test's intent is to head off into Impasse and harass Red Menace Coalition. This is purely for content, I believe. I think they're going to be looking purely to just hit structures and generate content rather than have it deal with it taking any solve. But also, I think, as I understand, it does appear that Test of kind of mostly focusing on kind of frigates and destroyers. So it is purely just pure fun content rather than bring the big toys for the kind of the full-on kind of sub warfare. Also, it does appear that they may be, by the very fact that they were involved with a structure getting hit in QBH-5-F, which belongs to Spaceship Family, which are a very small alliance that recently joined Red Menace Coalition. They attacked one of their structures. I think it's currently in a hull. And then also that potentially they're going to be going into Omist, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Now, one of the fights that took place in QBH-58, I just want to bring up because there was a very successful bombing run. So anybody that knows about bombing runs, you can basically spend a lot of time just cloaked in a fleet, hoping for a good warp in. And it doesn't happen very often, but this time a bunch of Serbs were caught. There was a hero involved who was not actually part of the bomber fleet. It was completely random. This saber belonged to Ericon of Lollipop Monopoly, and I'll show you in this video exactly why. So it's only a very short video, so I'm going to be very quick here. I'm going to try and get my pen at the ready. So basically, here are the Serbs in the middle here. The bombers come in to do a bomb, and then right here you can see there is a light blue Dicta who warped to a wreck and managed to bubble the Serbs literally as they were just about to warp out. So then the bombing run was utterly successful because the Serbs couldn't go anywhere. There were bubbles, they couldn't NWD, because otherwise it would just make their SIG balloon even worse. And they got caught. So this kind of bomb run doesn't happen very often, and it happened purely by chance with, the success was helped by a Dicta from another fleet just happening to be there at the right time. So that was definitely worth a mention on that one. I think it was Disorderly Vagrants or Diva from Test who were kind of the main group in that bomb run. All right, so now let's go back to our map and let's go to Omist. So Omist down here, which for so long belonged to Army of Mango. Then, if you remember, a week or so ago, Out of the Blue moved in along with Forsaken Empire and a group that I knew nothing about called Stay Feral, whose ticker is HAL. I have since found out, so Out of the Blue moved in. Now, Out of the Blue were originally fighting Forsaken Empire back in Fountain. This was when I mentioned before we had Fountain Book Club and a number of alliances at the end of the Pappy Imperium conflict that had set up shop in Fountain. And Out of the Blue, I think, went down to either Outer Ring, and were coming into Fountain and harassing Forsaken Empire. But as a consequence of this, they built up a good relationship, kind of being enemies, got to know each other, and decided to get together. Also, Stay Feral have connections to Out of the Blue, having been involved with Out of the Blue when Out of the Blue were part of the Greater Trash community and we formed Volta up in Pure Blind. And so that's kind of where the friendships were born. And then some pilots that were in that group decided to create Stay Feral. So Stay Feral is a very small alliance still, but these three groups are working together against potentially Fire Coalition and Test Alliance Please Ignore. Now I'm going to show you about a couple of battle reports here. They're not indicative of what's happening in this conflict, but they give you an idea that you can see out here. Out of the Blue, Stay Feral and Forsaken Empire working against Fire Coalition. Now at the moment, if I remember correctly, Out of the Blue are mostly US time zone, which is why we're primarily seeing Severance as the main group attacking back, who are the kind of the primary group of USTZ in Fire Coalition. And we have another battle report here as well. Out of the Blue, Forsaken Empire and Stay Feral versus Severance with a few more numbers from Black Rose and Razor. Now, the other thing to be aware of is that the Gila Gila is being favored by the groups that are in Omist, which would suggest that they're potentially multi-boxing as well. So whilst these numbers may look quite evenly matched at the moment, that is not probably the case in actual pilots. Now, this situation may change drastically because obviously if Test Alliance Please Ignore come in as well, they definitely have numbers. And also Fire Coalition have a big advantage in that they already have a number of structures in Omist. They actually have some athanors on a bunch of moons in Omist, which means they've got local points where they can tether up in Omist. So this is going to be a very, very difficult fight for Out of the Blue, Stay Feral and Forsaken Empire, who haven't got a name yet, although they have decided to call the area the kind of the Omist Saloon. And they have actually made an open invitation to independents, mercenaries, new players, basically anyone that's not affiliated to one of the big blocks. They are welcome to come down to Omist, set up shop, and help in potentially this fight, which may become very, very outnumbered. So we're going to have to see how that plays out and whether OOTB or Out of the Blue, aka Vapor, Forsaken Empire, and Stay Feral are able to hold on. And if that's the case, how long for? All right, so there you go. So that pretty much covers Omist. Then we're going to go over to Esoteria. So obviously the big news last week with Esoteria was the disbanding of Invictus, also known as IOU, who are the guys in purple here. And a couple of bits of news. So the first bit is that IOU, some of the members are potentially looking at creating a new alliance. So there is basically a particular pilot is trying to win sort of favor and lobbying at the moment to create a new alliance. And as I understand, this is not set in stone, but it's my understanding that if this new alliance is created, it may join Red Menace Coalition, who obviously are fighting Fire and Test, who are coming to them for content. So we'll have to see how that plays out. At the moment, if we look at Invictus, here we go. We can see we've had already a slight drop in numbers as some corporations have decided where they're going to go. And if we actually go scroll down to the bottom, you can see that one group has, I can't remember if this happened, no, this happened later, I think. So one group has gone to the initiative, that's Helgast Militarum, and Hun Express have joined Razor Alliance. Now this is kind of important because obviously Razor Alliance are part of Fire Coalition. And what Hun Express did, which is going to create a spanner in the works for PIBC, is they sold their Fortizar that they owned in 60K-BV to Fraternity. Now Fraternity are deployed in Stain and have been coming in for content into Esoteria quite a lot. In fact, they actually tried to reinforce in D-P NP9, they tried to reinforce the iHub in the last week, but they were unable to actually take the SOV due to the initiative kind of being in the area and outnumbering them. But obviously Fraternity having now a Fortizar in Esoteria is going to create some problems for PIBC, or should I just say AOM now, as Vindictive don't seem to be that active, and Obviously, Invictus are now looking at moving and potentially creating their alliance and moving into RMC, and other groups are going to join other corporations. So yeah, interesting times there for Esoteria, and we'll have to see if Fraternity make use of that staging Keepstar. And yeah, that was not expected that Hun Express would sell a Keepstar to enemies of AOM. But obviously being in Razor Alliance, they no longer have any affiliation to Red Mares Coalition, PIBC or Wrecking Crew, who have worked together in the past. Okay, so looking quickly at the ratting and Rorqual kills. Rorqual kills are down, only 10 Rorquals died in the last week. 8 ratting supers though, so more than expected. I think we're up on the last week, but Rorquals are down, so obviously Whaling is kind of bottom of the list right now. Obviously with some of the big blocks, the Imperium doing 6 squads, obviously Test Alliance, please ignore, doing a deployment. We already know that Fraternity have deployed a few months ago down into Esoteria. We'll have to see if PanFam and potentially some other groups also do some deployments. It's normally the kind of time of year when people do that. It's a good time, lots of people are online over the festive period, and so it generally creates some good content. Now, I'm just going to finish off with some news on bits and pieces. I'm going to show you my EVE end of year so that you can see that I actually do play EVE Online, and you will see that I'm actually active in the game. So first up, my Twitch this week is not going to be on a Friday, it's going to be on Thursday the 23rd of December at 2000 UTC. There will not be a YouTube show next week. I am going to take next week off, so I apologize for that. But I will then be back on Twitch on Thursday the 30th of December. After those days, then I will go back to my usual schedule. So that's about that for that, I think. Yeah, I think I can pause that now. So you can see I do lots of jumps in nullsec, funnily enough. Let me say to you now, happy holidays to all of you. I hope you have a wonderful time. I have a very special message for Fornic. You had us all worried, but I'm glad you're okay, and I wish you personally, Fornic, a very Merry Christmas. So everyone, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon for notifications, all that kind of good stuff. And I will see you on Twitch, and if I don't see you on Twitch, happy holidays until the next one. Bye.